Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. I got my audience howling at me. I make the dogs howl. Anyway, and good evening, and welcome to the show with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Gotta holler with the best of them. Oh, and as always, Robert, thank you very much. And as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom from the universe. And with that said, we welcome you. And tonight's story is the Star Boy. Did I get that right?
Yeah, yes, you did. It's the Star
Boy and the Sundance.
Yes.
So that's our story for tonight. And so if you can hang out till then, and of course, I'm going to pull some cards, so you can hang out for that. Pick your cards now.
People love the cards. Elderberry's in the house, and Nina the Mystic. Hey, everybody. There's Chloe. Howdy, Chloe. Jesus. And there you go. There's Nina. And if you want, everybody, there's at the pinned comment up above is the new Bosto shirt Nina has created. And so anyway, here it is. Good over there to Streamlabs and get your new Bosto shirt. Being of service to others. That's what it's all about. And being the frequency you want to receive too. So, but it all goes together. Chloe's got her cards already picked out. Snake, turtle, swan, badger, and moose. There is one of all of those. So there is a badger, there's a swan, there's a turtle, and a snake. So good for you, Chloe. You managed to remember all the cards. And anyway, thank you again. Thank you, Nina, for making up a new shirt. I got to get on over there and get me one. Always got to get the new shirt. I'm like trying to keep up with the Joneses. Anyway, so with that, tonight, get one of each. Absolutely, people. Get one for the R. Wayne Steiger. Get one for the Milky Way Soul Tribe. And get one for the Beyond Truth show, which we are having some really good ones. If you want to hear about Three-Eyed Atlas, well, tune on in over there. It's up on Rumble. I'll be taking the one down on the Milky Way because I bet you I'll get a strike on that one. But get on over there to Nina's channel, especially on the Rumble. Links are in the description below. We do some really good stuff on the Beyond Truth channel over there. Yes, Lucky's here. Happy Tribal Tuesday. The souls of the Milky Way. Yes, the holiday season is upon us. Yes, pretty soon it's Halloween. And will there be a Halloween show, Nina? Will I get to buy a new costume? Absolutely. Anyway, and Gilded. Yes, Rumble and Gilded. And while you're getting ready there, I am going to give you what we're talking about tonight. Of course, we're talking about a legendary guy. Oh, yeah, we're talking about a legendary guy, and by the name of Joe Meek. Yes, and Joe Meek was one of the mountain men of the day, back in the day, and we got some pictures of him and so forth and so on, because he lived a very long life. And, when they live a long life, they made it to the time when, cameras were invented. And we got pictures of these people. So there you go. I got some pictures here. We're going to go to here. Oh, that's his wife. There you go. Old time pictures of the guy. There's been books wrote about this guy. He's been in pictures like this, as we get going through here. Here he is in his older age. We'll be looking it up a little later. But yeah, he made it to the time when he could be famous and get a picture taken. So Instead of just having a drawing like such, we have pictures of a living legend. Um, anyway, yes. So tonight, who is Joe Meek? Well, we're gonna go down into the untamed wilderness where he started out, where the wind howls and the secret legends ride in the mountain breeze. Tonight we saddle up and ride straight into the roaring heart of the frontier history, because this is the story of a man who lived wild, laughed loud, and carved his name into the raw bones of American West. His name was Joe Meek. He was born under Virginia's sun in 1810. Joe Meek was no polished gentleman. He was frontier grit, wrapped in bear hide and bad jokes. Before he was 20, he tossed away any dreams of a quiet life and charged headfirst into the wild unknown, joining the fur trade during its golden, blood-soaked years. He didn't just trap beaver, he danced with death in the Blackfeet country. He raced across the Rockies with legends like Kit Carson, and he lived among the tribes with respect and raw courage. Joe Meek's story is a tale of transformation, from a wandering mountain man dodging arrows and howling with the wolves to grieving fathers chasing justice after the brutal white massacre. Meek turned pain into purpose. He rode along the Continental Divide to the very steps of Washington, D.C. to speak to the President Polk himself, not as a soldier or a diplomat, but as a man on a mission, the mission to bring law and order and voice for the settlers of the Oregon Territory. They called him a wild man, a trickster, a bear hunter, a lawman, and a whiskey-stained wit, and a backbone made of hickory. But Joe Meek was more than just a colorful character. He was a bridge between two worlds, a living thread that connected the mountain tribes, the fur brigades, and the pioneer settlers, and the hard march of American government into the Pacific Northwest. And tonight we're pulling back the curtain of his incredible life, the battles, the heartbreak and the laughter, the law, the legacy. So tonight, join me for something strong, light the lantern and lean in close, because this isn't just another history lesson. This is a story of a man who refused to be tamed, who made the wilderness his home and history his witness. So there we go. That's the guy we're going to be talking about tonight, Joe Meek. What do you think of that guy? He looks a little bit like you with the big beard, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Except you don't smoke a pipe, do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Oh, well, there. Go figure. Look at that. Hot diggity dog. Shoot, you put the cap
Just
on.
like Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah, there you. Hot dang. Put the hat on and the buckskins. There you go. Reincarnation. Are you sure you didn't live back then? You're.
Sometimes I wonder.
Well, I get to thinking about that. Now, I know you're on the same wavelength that I am, but I want to know what your thoughts of all of this, is. And my thought is how some people are just interested in certain things versus other things, like you gravitate towards certain subjects, put it that way. Like some people, like I seen a guy the other day and he really enjoyed dressing up like he was from the 40s. He wanted to drive a 40s car. He wanted to, put on the 40s suit and hat and act like he was in the 40s. He decorated his house like he was in the 40s.
He wanted to wear a pair of spats.
Yeah, exactly. And like myself, I gravitate towards that old time stuff. I sometimes refuse almost to bring myself into modern day. I keep holding on to the old stuff because I gravitate towards that. Um, you get what I'm saying? And I see other people, well, they'll gravitate to the like the 60s or maybe the 70s, or maybe they'll gravitate to the 1800s, and they like to go to those rendezvous, or maybe they like to gravitate to the Civil War. What do you think on that? Do you think if we were reincarnated into this body here, that we bring along those wants and desires as we had them, not knowing from back in those days? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the having been to Andersonville prison site in Andersonville, Georgia, and I sat on the hill there, and which would be up in the corner, looking down the hill of where the boundaries of the prison were, and I was just overcome with grief. And I was like, 10,000 men lived in this spot. And there was just a feeling of, God, what was it like? And it's almost like I was transposed back to that time. And it was about sundown. So looking down the hill, it's like I could see all these little tiny campfires everywhere, where all the little groups were within inside the camp. And I was like, so I do feel like, and sometimes I look like an old Confederate soldier, and
Yeah.
for some reason I don't feel like I'm an old. I'm not an old soldier from the North, I always feel like I'm a Confederate soldier. I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about pistols. And every time I've had the opportunity to shoot a pistol, I've been very accurate shooting from the hip. And it's like, now, nobody's ever taught me how to do that. But, I have, instead of taking aim and doing all this kind of stuff, I just pull it up and bang, 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 and shoot in a spot about this big around, which is, a kill zone. And so people are, how in the hell did you learn how to do that, Dave? Don't know. So at some point, I feel like, sometimes I feel like I was a cowboy, but I could have been in the Confederate War and then became a cowboy. So I could have been both.
Well, that's how a lot of the cowboys got to be cowboys, because
right. That's true.
They got done with the war. They're 20, 25, whatever. Their home has been burnt down, their family killed or whatever, or maybe they got nothing left to live for. There's no, the economy went to crap. They packed up their belongings and said, we're heading west. We're going to, do whatever. I'm going to be a buffalo killer guy, and I'm going to go out and, shoot buffalo. I'm going to be a skinner, whatever, and make good money, because hunting buffalo was easy and good money, because, then, well, once those were gone, then the cattle came in, and then it was cattle drives and cattle herds and big ranches and so forth and so on. And by the 1890s or the 1900s, railroads and fencing and all of that kind of put a squash on everything, and cowboy stuff was kind of over with. I mean, the cowboy that we want to believe is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but some of that cowboy stuff did go into 1915, 1920, because they still had to get the cattle to market, and trains hadn't gotten everywhere yet. But to the most part, the big cattle drives, that used to go up the Chisholm Trail and all that, that was pretty much over. Let me introduce. Since we're talking about this sort of, I heard something that was interesting yesterday. We've talked about Daniel Boone and folks over in Appalachia, and they said that Daniel Boone, before he got married, had went off and on one of his jaunts, and him and his partner had gotten waylaid on the trail, had all their stuff stolen from him and everything. And So he decided that he just wasn't going back to civilization, and that he basically stayed out in the wilderness by himself for about 2 years.
Yep.
And I was like, so what makes a person do that? You know?
Mhm.
So in this day and time, how many people get the opportunity? We hear, the mountain men, these people that go off to Alaska and they're seeking these adventures. They go off by themselves. Even women are doing that. There's a woman that's going through Pakistan or something on a motorcycle. I'm like, what's that? What? But so there are these people that seem to have this adventurous spirit. Where'd they get it
Mhm.
from? And
Yeah.
I think that adventurous spirit is a reincarnation of an adventurous spirit from a previous lifetime.
Well, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah,
I think it's carried over,
definitely, definitely carried over. Um,
And
because
there are some people who could care less about, go camping. Are you kidding? I'll go to the motel, but I'm not getting it. A travel trailer? No, 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 no. I'll go to a motel. You know.
yeah, no, I'm right there with you. That's exactly it. Like I said, and people like certain things. They gravitate towards certain stuff. Like some people love to fly. They got planes and they fly and they can't wait to be a pilot. Or be in the air. And well, did they grow up? Or I mean, were they a pilot in a past life? Did they fly? Who knows? Or were they a ship on a captain of a ship or something? I don't know. I don't know. It's a thought though. That was my thought. Anyway.
Yeah. And I gravitate towards canoes and kayaks. I was canoes long before I knew about kayaks.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm still there. I refuse to give in or give up about that. Um, and so I'm hoping to go on an adventure soon. Now that the weather has cooled down, it was 58 degrees here this morning.
Mm.
Ooh, goodness gracious me.
Oh boy.
All right, tell us about Joe Meeks.
Yes, Joe Meeks. Well, anyway, let's see. I'm gonna present you with something because you don't want to look at my ugly mug all the time. Anyhow, there we go. And okay, so in his early life, Joe was brought up or born in 1810 in Washington County, Virginia, into a modest farming family. And of course, I read up on this, and they had a pretty big farm because they had a bunch of slaves to take care of the farming. Um, and from a young age, he was known to be restless and headstrong and full of imagination. The traditional life of plows and pasture never suited him, and he caused lots of ruckus. When he was young, he got in a fight with the teacher of the class. And when the teacher did, I forget what it was, he took the paddle that he was going to get paddle with, because back in the day you get paddle. And one of the stories was he took the paddle from the teacher and cracked him over the head with it. And that was pretty much the end of his school days. But now he had two.
How old was he? Does it say?
No, it doesn't say, but it had to be sometime under 17. That's so I
Yeah,
imagine he would got to be about
yeah.
15 or 16. He was wild, and he wasn't taking none of that from the teacher. And so
Ruckus.
yeah, but he had two older brothers, and they packed up and they went west, and they were very successful. Now he thought, I can do that too, and so he ditched everything. And a guy was passing through, and he didn't tell his parents. He jumped on the wagon. The guy says, "I'm heading to St. Louis," and he says, "I'm going." And with a bag full of nothing, uh, he headed out, um, and into the unknown. His journey took him down the Ohio River, across the Mississippi, and eventually ranks of William Sublet's Fur Brigade. There's a story that goes along with this that said when he got to William Sublet's, Sublet was in town. Put it this way: Sublet was in town, and he went there to apply so he could be a mountain man and trapper and go on out in the West and experience all this. And then Sublet looked at the boy and he said, "How old are you?" And he says, "Well, I'm like 17." And he said, "Well, you're gonna get yourself killed." And Joe Meek said, "Well, I guess I can die." And he says, "Well, that sounds like a guy for me." So he hired him, and he went on to become one of Ashley's 100. And so in the early 1830s, he went on to be a wild man who helped carve through the great Rockies and plains and trap and do all kinds of stuff like that. So, he had a hard beginning, from what I read about it. These guys got mules, donkeys, or whatever they were hauling all their packing equipment out into the mountain range, and they literally had to teach these young men how to work with the animals, break them, pack them, and the animals were getting broke along the trail. I couldn't believe that. It was like, oh my gosh, I thought you'd just buy animals that were all ready to pack, that knew how to be packed and do all it. But these young kids were given these mules, and they were probably just green broke, and they had to pack them. And the animals didn't like them. They would kick you and bite you and buck their stuff off. Mules can be really tough. I'll put it that way.
Real tough.
Yes. Well, anyway, Joe Meek caught on, and he thrived in the wild. He trapped beaver in the Teton Range, the Green River, and Snake River country. He lived among and often with various native tribes, including the Flathead, the Shoshone, Blackfeet, and later the Nez Perce. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But let's finish up on Meek. Meek wasn't just passing through their lands. He even married into them. His first wife was a Nez Perce woman, and together they had several children. These years were some of the hardest and most thrilling of his life. He faced grizzlies, freezing winters, starvation, and near constant danger from rival tribes and other trappers. But Meek was a natural storyteller, and even in the harshest moments, he found humor. He became a legend around the rendezvous camps, known for his tall tales and even taller boots. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the tragedy of the Whitman Massacre and Meek's political awakening. Political, you say? After the fur trade began to collapse in the late 1830s. Now remember, he started in the early 1830s, so he didn't really have a big long run like some of those guys who started in the 1820s. And the reason that the collapse was happening is because people were going from the beaver skin cap to where they use beaver felt to make hats, those top hats, the big tall top hats. They were going to silk. And so nobody needed the beaver anymore. So anyway, after all of this stuff, Meek turned his eyes towards the Willamette Valley in Oregon. He tried his hand at farming and ranching, but more importantly, he became a key figure in the Oregon provincial government. And that's where the Nez Perce are. So, he's no wonder why he married a Nez Perce woman. In 1847, tragedy struck. Joe's younger daughter, Helen Mar Meek, was killed in an infamous Whitman massacre in the hands of the Cayuse War Party, sparking a regional conflict. Broken-hearted but determined, Meek rode all the way from Oregon to Washington, D.C., a journey of over 3,000 miles to deliver the news in person to President James K. Polk. 3,000 miles. I just wonder how long it took him to go that far. Can you imagine
And the
riding?
saddle sores.
Yeah, I have to look. I got to look this one up. Oh my gosh. But anyway, 3,000 miles. That's a long way. You know how long it takes to drive like 800 miles in a car at 65, 70 miles an hour. It's going to take you, 12 hours. So just times that by, oh my gosh, it probably took him 3 months, I would say. I'm guessing. I'm going to have to look it up.
Unless once he got over the Mississippi, he got himself a train ride the rest of the way. Him and his horse could have booked a freighter to, the rest of the way, but still would have taken him a long time.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, even if he had to ride 1,000 miles and then he gets to wherever there's a ship or a boat, I mean, I wonder how long it would take to go down, even if he crossed, say, like the mountains, came through Montana, then went through North Dakota, got to Minnesota, got on the Mississippi, went down the Mississippi to where, say, St. Louis, where there would be a train, and then took that up to Washington. I mean, still, that's a long journey. I mean, you could get killed by the Indians. You could, in 1847, the Indians were still running wild. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what happened? The meeting changed everything. Polk listened, and Congress acted, and Oregon officially became a U.S. territory. In that moment, Joe Meek, the rowdy mountain man, became U.S. Marshal of the Oregon Territory. Wow. He became a marshal. Later years of his law, legacy, and laughter. As marshal, Meek enforced law across the still wild territory. He often joked, and he carried out justice with a revolver in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other. But behind the jokes, he was a man deeply committed to building the West, one settlement, one family, one law at a time. Meek eventually retired to his farm in Hillsboro, Oregon, where he died in 1875. He was buried in the land he helped tame, surrounded by the memory of 1,000 adventures. Well, what happened? What was Joe Meek known for? He didn't leave behind great wealth, and he left a wealth of stories. His booming laughter, reckless courage, and deep compassion for both settler and native lives made him a figure larger than life. He stood at the crossroads between two worlds, the wild frontier and the birth of a nation's westward dreams. So anyway, let's go on with Nez Perce. Well, Joe interacted wildly with a bunch of native tribes, and throughout his life as a mountain man and a trapper, and later a settler and a political figure, going to see the president, he met up with the Nez Perce. Of course, that's like I said, they're there, and of course he married a Nez Perce woman, and they had several children. The Nez Perce were generally friendly towards American trappers and missionaries in the early 1800s. Joe Meek lived among them during his fur trapping days and developed strong family and social bonds. Their peaceful relations made them perfect ally for the American frontiersmen until later conflicts with the U.S. government in the 1870s after Meek's time. Well, and that's exactly it. The Nez Perce were pretty friendly until, I would say, 1865 or something like that. And the territory was really getting settled. Usually, all these territories were getting settled a lot after the Civil War. So you can put your pin in that, and that kind of gives you all the information you need. So anyway, who else did he hang out with in Western Montana? Of course, he was trapping there, Idaho and Wyoming. He had trade alliances and seasonal allies. Meek frequently joined trapping brigades that passed through Flathead territory. And the Flathead were also mostly friendly to American trappers and missionaries. Meek generally shared camps and traded with them at major rendezvous like those in Green River. Of course, then there was the Blackfeet. Well, the Blackfeet were very hostile. They didn't like anybody coming in their area. Blackfeet usually were in that region of where just wrap your head around where Glacier National Park is. Probably a 200-mile radius around that, maybe more. That's where the Blackfeet were, and beautiful country there. But hey, they don't want you in their territory. And they were very aggressive towards American trappers, whom they saw as intruders. Joe Meek reportedly had multiple confrontations and near-death experiences with the Blackfeet war parties. Many of his wildest campfire tales included dodging arrows or sneaking away from Blackfeet ambushes. Of course, then there were the Shoshone, the eastern and northern bands. Remember, there's different groups of these same types of tribes. And Meek's trapping routes often took him through Shoshone territory. And he likely bartered furs and horses and supplies, things like that with them. And some Shoshone served as guides for Meek and other mountain men. Of course, there was the Cayuse, remember? And the Cayuse killed his daughter. They were started out being very peaceful, but later became violent. And usually that happens when the white man comes in and takes all their land and tells them they got to live on a reservation. Well, Meek's daughter
comes into their camps and slaughters and steals and burns, and the mountain men respected him and went in with respect and honor. Nodded to the chiefs and gave him respect. And then other white men came out and were like, "Well, you're a dang Indian. I don't have to give you no respect." And that's when the stuff happened.
Well, and that's the thing. The mountain men traded with them. They got to know the Indians' ways and their customs and how to greet them. Don't go up there with your gun and just say, "What do you want?" You go up there and raise your hand and put your gun on the ground and you bow a little bit, and then they know you're at peace because there's a thing called language. You don't just ride up the Indians like they do in the movies and just say and they all start speaking English.
Yeah.
People forget that. I think that's one of those.
That's what I mean by respect and honor. They would go up and hello, chief, and to the and maybe have some kind of some tobacco to give to them, and that they'd sit down and have a smoke, and
Yes.
and then they got to know the different tribes. But the biggest thing is they went with respect, and other white people went out there and that had no respect, I mean, as much as folks want to complain about, Custer in The Last Stand, that he didn't have respect for the Indian, not the same way that the pioneer trappers did, who got along with them and who, probably made money off the Indian, men weren't into killing them, but then there were the folks who thought they were better than the Indian.
I want to beg to differ on that a little bit, but with the Custer thing, hang on to the Custer thing. But I want to tell you about Joe Meek. I was reading his book. He's got a book, of course, an autobiography book. Anyway, he was talking about how he met up with these Indians, and they were coming and charging. There was hundreds of them. It seemed like they come charging over the hill, and him and the 25 mountain men, or 60, maybe it was 60 mountain men. I think there were 60 of them. They were out trapping, and the Indians come charging over the hill at a full gallop, yelling and screaming, and they're, and Sublet was there, and Sublet being, the leader of the group, understanding the Indians probably the most at the time. The Indians came charging out, and Sublette gathered his men around, and they all got their guns out ready. And he said, "Don't shoot. Listen to me. Don't shoot unless I shoot first." Sublette walked out in front of all the mountain men towards the Indians that were charging at them, and raised his gun about waist high, and the chief and the Indians running at him stopped, and the Indian put his gun down and raised his hands and said, and they knew these were peaceful Indians. And so Sublette put his gun on the ground and put his hands up, and they were at peace. And then he invited the chief back to their camp, where he gave them tobacco, gifts of bullets, gunpowder. I think there was a few other little things too that they gave the chief as gifts. To like gestures. A lot of it between the Indians was all about gifts. There was lots of gifts. They expected gifts were like a tax, a money thing, and you couldn't go up there and say, "Hey, here's $20." You know what I mean?
It's more than that, because the powwows that I've been at, you want to do a little bit of trading or whatever, or somebody you haven't seen in a while, and you just want to gift them something, just out of respect, just out of honor, And I can think of a couple of powwows that I've been to. Somebody recognized me. "You're the storyteller, aren't you?" "Yep." "Okay." So, but I got free coffee one weekend over at the powwow, coming up in a couple of weeks, come to think of it. But so there are things that they will give, and it's not as a tax. We would see, as white people, we would see it like a tax, but it was much more than that. It's like a gift of friendship. "Hey, here, while I was away, I got this souvenir, and I thought about you, and I went to something, and here's a lousy T-shirt." But I mean, they would think about, the chief and say, "I want to present this to you because I value your friendship and honor you. And by the way, here's my tax." But I mean, so the tax thing, yeah, but it was a lot, and still is. If folks know what they're doing, they make up little pouches of tobacco. And, so if there's someone, they will gift them this pouch of tobacco. So, it's still an old honored tradition. So anyway, what were you going to say about Custer and?
Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't that Custer didn't sit down and powwow with the Indians. He respected the Indians. Yeah, I read about that. He did sit down with the Indians many a time. He usually had a bunch of Indians working for him from different tribes as scouts and so forth and so on. The thing is at the end there, the government basically gave him free rein and said, remember, just before the Custer massacre, a little before that, they deemed all Indians not on reservation hostiles, and they were to be to surrender or be killed. And that's why all the Indians that gathered at the Little Bighorn were there, because they were trying to avoid all this. You know what I mean? They said, right, you need to go to the reservation by this time. And now they were all hostiles, and they said, what are we going to do? Let's all get together and powwow about this. And at that point, Custer, he's out there roaming the territory looking for Indians. Any Indian was a hostile and considered to be fair game. And that was his orders: kill on sight. No treaties, no powwows, no nothing. Kill on sight. See? That's why he didn't go in under a peace flag. He was going in war bound right away. So we'll get into Custard again one of these days. But that from what I read, that's kind of what was happening. He was just out there looking for any Indian he could to massacre, and he got massacred. Picked on the wrong bunch.
Yep.
There never been, as you know, the Indians were all in tribes, different bands.
Uh-oh. Did he freeze up? Am I still here?
You're on. You're always on. When I go off, you're always on.
Okay. Well, I was starting into a spiel.
Well, anyway, yeah.
I was thinking about something.
Yeah. So the thing is, they were all the bands at the end of the Indian days. The Indians were realizing that they can't fight each other anymore, even though they might have different conflicts, because there wasn't many left. They needed to get on the bandwagon and just band together, because they were all Indians instead of, white man here, and we'll band with these, because in the beginning it was a good thing. It's like, I get the white man, and the white man will help me and give me guns and do this and that. In the end, they started realizing what was going on. I band up with the white man here and I kill my enemies, and then the white man kills me and puts me on a reservation because there ain't no more people.
And now they don't mind staying on the reservation because they got a multi-million-dollar casino. Come on in, white people, and give us your money.
Yeah, exactly. So let's finish up with some of this Meek stuff here before my time runs out. Okay. So, so anyway, he really, had his day. Like I said, he lived a long life, told some tall tales, and, things like that. Okay, let's see. Anyway, he worked for Rocky Mountain Fur Company, which most of the mountain men did. He recalls running fights with the Blackfeet, described wild escapes in his own storytelling style. I would love to hear some of his stories from his lips. It's too bad they didn't have recorders back then. A lot of these, he says, were not formal battles, but brutal guerrilla-style ambushes in the wilderness. I can't imagine what that would have been like. I mean, here, they're hiding behind some trees, or they're on a rock somewhere, and they start shooting at you, and you're just trying to get the heck away. Anyway, we were talking about the Cayuse, weren't we? The Cayuse. Who were the Cayuse? The Whitman Massacre in 1847. The Cayuse tribe attacked the Whitman mission. They were blaming missionaries for the deadly measles outbreak. It's always something. What they can't see and don't understand has to be the white man.
But they were probably right.
Well, yeah, but even if they weren't right, measles is measles, and to the white man, you get measles, you get sick, and then you get better. You drink some hot tea and some chicken soup, and you survive.
Natives didn't. The measles were not in the native population until the white man showed up.
Yeah, so the measles were deadly to them. Whereas to us,
they had no antibodies for it.
Yes. And so like we get the measles, and we survive and we go on to live another day. They just get it so bad they die. And I guess I can't blame them for that. Anyway, his daughter was killed, and that sparked him riding the 3,000 miles to Washington, which encouraged Polk to make Oregon a territory. So he had a big part in that, and that led to him being kind of famous. How did this all end? Well, he joined a militia units that pursued the Cayuse warriors, believed responsible for the massacre. He participated in battles or pursuits along with other settlers and militia leaders, and the conflict ended with several Cayuse hanged, though debate persists over their guilt of the men executed. And of course, being a white man, you look at it, they would look at Indians and say, well, it's an Indian. He had to do it. He's an Indian. We don't know who he is. He looks just like all the rest, right?
Right.
Since he can't speak the language, or he might not speak the language, they just pick 5 guys. They got to get hanged. And then the deal is over. So that's kind of how it went. But what did he do as a U.S. Marshal? So in the 1850s, he became a U.S. Marshal here.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
So they picked 5 guys and hung them?
Well, see, that's the thing. It says the conflict ended with several Cayuse hanged, but they were debating on if these were the guilty men or not. So they really didn't know if these were the guilty ones. They probably rounded up a bunch of them and said, these look like the bad dudes, and somebody's dying. You know what I'm saying?
There was probably a couple of them going, he did it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I imagine, see, Indians aren't like that. They probably all just didn't say anything.
I know, I'm joking. That's a bad joke.
Yeah. But the white man looked at him and says, this guy, he looks badass, he's got to go. And so they picked 5 of them. I mean, I don't know how they did it. I don't know the ins and outs, but they're still don't know this day. So anyway, so now it's the 1850s, and he's a U.S. Marshal. What did he do? He dealt with escalating tensions between the incoming settlers and the native tribes, especially in eastern Oregon. That's where the Walla Walla Valley is there. These encounters often legal or enforcement related, and he was also present during the territorial military campaigns aimed at pacifying the frontier. You know what that means? Pacifying means kicking the Indians off their land and putting them on reservations, to simplify it. He never led military campaigns himself. Huh?
And it also means that if there's a bad guy, bang, you're dead.
Yeah, they didn't.
Justice.
Yeah, back in, especially, if they found some bad Indians, I'm sure they didn't.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about white people. If there was some, if there was some, got drunk and did something, and they were like, how many of you just seen him do it? We did. You saw him do it. That was court.
Yeah, you'd think that happens a lot. It did, but it didn't. A lot of times, these marshals, they would take him to jail. People didn't fight back, as like you think. The really bad dudes probably did, but most of them went in. Believe it or not, most people would go to the court and would be acquitted. Not enough witnesses. Nobody has any good evidence. It's amazing how this actually worked, because I mean, I read and read about this stuff, and these guys would get arrested for killing somebody, but then when they come, hey, how do we prove this guy? Don't know, because they didn't have DNA testing. They didn't know how to extract bullets. The people that were witnessing it got on the wagon train and moved on, and so these guys got let off time after time after time, believe it or not. And when they did something really bad and they were caught, people got together and had a lynching.
Yep.
That's kind of the way I see it from studying all of this. We watch too many movies where, you're the bad dude. Boom, I just watched a clip today where the sheriff comes in and he's looking for the bad dude, and the guy, he says, are you so-and-so? And he says, yeah. Did you see those guys down at the river? Yeah. Boom. And he and and then the shooting's going on, and everybody's shooting at everybody else, and I kid you not, it's usually not the way it really went. And believe it or not, the stories are so exaggerated. After reading some of these things and listening to stuff, these guys could shoot at each other in a room and still not get killed because these guns are big and they were bad shots. Especially with a revolver. They were shooting, like you said, at the hip. They couldn't hit the side of a barn. I listened to the one, and they were talking about these two dudes, Pistol Pete and somebody else, and I forget, maybe it wasn't Pistol Pete, it was somebody. Anyway, these two guys were fighting it out. It was about Jesse James and the Ford brothers or the something or other, and they were fighting over a woman, and they got there, and one guy's there, and he's with his girl, and they're drawn in a room at each other, and one guy got shot in the leg, one guy got shot in the arm. They ran out of bullets, and they went their separate ways. And I'm thinking, he's right there. How big is this room? I mean, the houses back in the day weren't very big. So how big was the room, and how bad of a shot are you?
Pretty bad.
Yeah. And one guy, neither one got killed. Just saying. Well,
the reason I brought up the sheriff thing is because early on, a lot of the small communities did not have a jail. And if something really bad was going on, they would hang a man, out in the wilderness if he was a cattle rustler or a horse thief, and they proved it. It was 100 miles to the nearest town. There was like, nah, we ain't doing this. Well, Marshall, you're the guy, and so they do justice, not in a mean or spiteful way, but that's how they had to do it out on the prairie in the early days. So,
yes. Well, even
I say, boom, they got him, but
Well, even more so, actually, in the later days when the cattle wars were going on, those homesteaders, they hired people like Tom Horn, and that went out as like marshals or whatever, and they went out, and if they thought you were stealing cattle, that was it. They hung you on the spot. The problem was they were if you were a small farmer and you had some cattle, they just said, oh, those must be those guys' cattle, and they hung you. And now the big farmer guy, the rancher, just buys up your land, and you're not there to fight for it anymore.
No, there was a lot of, and there still is a lot of monkey business. But back in those days, because nobody could prove anything out there in the wilderness,
Yeah.
And so, a lot of things went by. But, that's what made America great in the West. Folks took care of their own business, and only the strong survived.
That's so true.
Bringing up Meek, though, which is like only the strong survived. Well, he was Meek. Well, but anyway, there was somewhere, it might have been in Oregon or out in Idaho, that wasn't there a Meek's Pass or a Meek's Cutoff or something?
There and might be. I didn't find one, but there probably.
You didn't find one?
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't find that. No, I didn't. Sorry, I probably should look that up. So
I just remember from way back when somewhere that there was, and I was curious if it was him, but but that going through Oregon and some of them places that and it would make sense, him being up there all the time, and now that he's the the marshal of the territory, it makes sense that they name a a mountain pass after him or something. But anyway, well, just curious.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I got this. No man like Joe. The descendants of any average family, um, uh, ordinary pursuits, or local prominence. Ginny, his wife, um, said, on respected and loved until the turn of the century. She went blind in her later years. She wouldn't sit and she would sit and hum a haunting Nez Perce melody, while from a basket on her lap she passed lovingly through her fingers, as though they were more than precious than gold, the brass buttons from Marshall's uniform, the last physical remains of a departed glory and greatness. Proudly, she said to a visitor who thus observed her, "No man can run like Joe, no man can fight like Joe, and no man like Joe." Ain't that something? He must have been quite the character.
No man like Joe.
Yeah, no man can run like Joe, no man can fight like Joe, and no man like Joe. Interesting. So, like I said, if you want to check out a book, The Adventures of Joe Meek, like I said, he went through a lot of hardships. We got some pictures of him. And here's his wife, his Nez Perce wife. And she lived a lot longer than he did. So, but she went blind in the end and lived a very long time. Never did say how long she lived. Of course, she was probably born in an Indian village somewhere, and they weren't keeping track of time like we do. Many moons I lived, Oh, okay. Lucky says the road was named for frontiersman Stephen Meek, who was hired to lead the first wagon train across it in 1845. And the journey was particularly a hard one, and many of the pioneers lost their lives. Yep, and that's usually what happened in those days. All these people were, and if you want to look it up, he's got a link in there. Meek's Cutoff. There you go. Take a look at that. Anyway, we are gonna, let's see if there's anything more here. I guess that's it for that. But yeah,
so
very
Meek, in other words. That's what my question was. Thank you, Lucky.
Yes. So anyway, he had a good long life. Like I said, he blazed the trails. I think his biggest accomplishment is when he took the 3,000-mile journey to Washington to talk to the president. That's got to take a lot of guts to travel 3,000 miles. And then, unlike today, I mean, can you imagine? Back then, you could, "Hey, I'm Joe Meek. I'm from Oregon. I need to talk to you, President." Today, you think you're even going to get close to the White House? Heck no. Did you make an appointment? Did we screen you? We got to frisk you, screen you, put you on you can't get an appointment. Are you ever going to speak to the president? Absolutely not. You will probably, no matter how hard you try, you will never get to speak to the president. Am I right?
And take the tour to the East Wing.
Yeah. And then what? Is he going to be there and shake your hand? "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, yeah, I'm from Oregon. I want you to make that a state. There was a big massacre out there." "Oh, really? News travels slow. We still haven't got the phone yet. Telegraph lines are on their way. Don't you worry." "We're getting some train tracks headed your way. You just wait another 20 years. You'll be there soon." But anyway, okay. Anyway, Joe Meek's. Okay. Lucky says Meek's Pass was named for Joe Meek's brother, Stephen Meek, the older brother of Joe Meek. Like I said, Joe Meek had two brothers, and they went out ahead of him. He might have had a younger brother too. I don't know. But anyway, that's about it for Joe Meek. I hope you all enjoyed the information, you want to go out there and find some more information on Joe Meek. Quite the interesting story. Like I said, there's books and things. There's some audio books and stuff like that you can find on Spotify and or on YouTube. I actually had more luck on YouTube to find his audio book than I did on Spotify, which you got to pay because it's locked up. The more I look,
Stephen Meeks was a relative of Joe.
He was
right?
a brother. His brother.
Okay.
Meek's name for Joe Meek's brother. Yeah. See, you learn all kinds of stuff on this show.
Well, you know, and that, for me, it's like, wasn't one of them Meeks did a something, and so, yeah, I was right. It was his brother. Oh, okay.
Yep, exactly. So we got a story coming, don't we?
But that was my, you know, that was my, that was the point of asking. So
yeah,
it was his
good.
brother. Ooh, there we go.
We're all learning here. You know, like I said, that more I just got this. We were just talking about William Sublett, and I just got this book, Bill Sublett, The Mountain Man. I can't wait to start reading it. I might have to do another show on it, but it's quite thick, as you can see, and I got so many other books I got to read, and we already did a show on that. So sorry, people. You know, shows got to come when shows got to come. You know, so we got to do them when we can. And I wish I had more time to read, but most of the time I'm reading in the evening, and I fall asleep. Can't work all day and read all night, even though I'd like to. Like during the week, I don't watch any TV stuff, nothing. And even on the weekends, the only thing I watch is, you know, once in a while I'll put in a movie for some entertainment while I wash the dishes and things like that. And there is Scotty boy. We were wondering when Scotty was going to show up. Hey, I thought you were.
Scotty boy.
I thought he was ditching us. Oh, dang gone. I guess he's not. Elderberry's in the house tonight. Yes, he is lively tonight. So is Lucky Stone. Thank you all for being here. Gaza Cav is in the house from Gaza's backyard. So thank you. It's nice to see you're still around. And out there and listening to the show. I try to bring you the best information. Chloe's listening tonight. Of course, Nina the Mystic, don't forget, and Quantum Gut Feeling. Thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget to go over to Nina the Mystic's show or her my tongue got tied. Her StreamYard Streamlabs, sorry, and get yourself a new Bosto shirt over there on Nina the Mystic's merch. Link is in the chat at the pinned comment or below in the description. Check it out. It's a good thing, you know, and we all try to help out, get a new shirt, whatever. The holidays are coming up. It's all good. Anyway, well, are you ready for the story?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, and I am going to bring that up for you because that's what we do. Whew, there we are. Look at that. I'm just as good as I ever was.
As good as ever.
I'm getting better every day. You know, before the show, we were talking about a little bit about legacy, and I want to ask the audience here if they can help us out. And we were talking about, you know, will we be, if we're not famous, this, I guess, how do I want to phrase this? If we're not famous, we don't do something great, how will we ever live on? Will we live on? Do you want to live on after you pass away?
You want to be remembered.
You want to be remembered. It seems like everybody wants to be remembered. And if you don't do anything special, will anybody remember you? And I know myself, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I remember my dad, and my dad's still alive, but I mean, I remember my grandpa, and I never met my great grandpa. and or my great-great-grandpa. Well, I don't have any pictures, no nothing. I don't even know his name. But, you know, will, you know, how will these people, how will my grandpa be remembered in the future, except for a headstone that says, you know, his name? So I don't know. I want to be remembered. Maybe my memory will carry on in YouTube video land, and so will yours, David. You know, it'll be, you know, somebody 20, 30, 50 years from now can still look you up and watch your show. Say, wow, look at this guy. Well, what do you think?
I've got videos from 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So I mean, you know, there is that. So, but you know, as long as YouTube keeps them, and I've seen some videos, you know, that's 15, 17 years. So, you know, as long as YouTube will remember me, you know, there's that. But
yeah.
you making that statement, it makes me wonder. There are so many people who want to write a book. Oh, you know, I've always wanted to write a book. People will say, you know, not everybody, but a lot of folks. I just feel like I want to write a book about something. Okay, and in a way, I think that's how they can pass on their legacy. I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to put my name on it, and it will be published. And in some way, shape, or form, I'm going to live in infamy. You know what I mean?
That's a good idea. Are you going to write a book?
With all the videos that I've done, if I could take one of them 4 or 5 hour ones and convert it into text.
Absolutely.
And probably have at least a book. You know, Lord have mercy.
I've actually considered writing a book too a while back, and I just haven't really, you know, put effort to it because I'm too busy. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe you're right. I like it. So anyway, with that, let's get on with it before we run out of time here, just chit-chatting the night away. We got to get on with the story. I see new people. Steve Bowe is in the house, and John Price. Thank you for being here. I'm sure they're waiting for the story. So I'm out of here.
And by the way, I've already chosen the cards. And so pick them now to see if you win. Not that I know what you're going to win, but do we have a prize for tonight? No, just that it would be a good card read. So is it my turn? I guess so. Okay. So tonight's story, and interesting that he was talking about Joe Meek's and the Blackfeet, because this story is about the Blackfeet. So continuing on in our long tale, I'm still reading from Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus McMillan, 1922. So over 100 years ago. So tonight's story is Starboy and the Sundance. Once long ago, when the Blackfeet Indians dwelt on the Canadian prairies, it happened that a band of the people were camped near the mountains. It was springtime, and warm winds blew over the prairies, laden with the scent of wildflowers. One hot, cloudless night, 2 girls slept in the long prairie grass beside their tents with no covering but the sky. The elder awoke before dawn and saw the morning star just rising. Very beautiful and bright, he looked in the clear morning air, with no smoke or dust to hide him. The girl looked long at the star, and she had strange fancies, and imagined that he was her lover. At last she called her sister and said, "Look at the morning star. He is bright and wise. I love the morning star, for he is more beautiful than man." One day in the autumn, when the flowers were faded, and the grass was yellow with age, and the cool winds blew over the prairie, and the birds were flying south, as the girl was returning home from a long walk, she met a young man on the trail. In his hair was a yellow plume, and in his hand a small shrub with big spider web hanging to it. He was very beautiful, and he wore fine clothes of soft skins, and the odor of his dress was that of the sweet grass and the pine. As the girl drew aside from the trail to pass, he put forth his hand and stopped her. "Stand aside," she said, "and let me pass." But he answered, "I am the morning star. One night in spring, when the flowers were blooming, I saw you sleeping in the long grass outside your tent, and I loved you. I heard you say you loved only me, and now I have come to ask you to come with me to the sky, to the home of my father, the sun, where we shall live together, and you will have no more troubles nor cares. It is the land of the little people, the land of the ever young, where all are happy like children, and no one ever grows old." Then the girl remembered the hot, cloudless night in the springtime when she slept in the tall grass, and knew now that morning star was to be her husband. And she said, "I must first say goodbye to my father and mother." But Morning Star said, "There must be no leave talking or taking," and he would not let her go home. He fastened his yellow plume in her hair and gave her the shrub to hold. He told her to place her feet upon the lowest strand of the spider's web and to hold the uppermost strand in her hands. Then he told her to shut her eyes. After a brief time, when he asked her to open her eyes, they were in the sky. They passed on to a large tent. Morning Star said, "This is the home of my father and mother, the sun and the moon." And he asked her to enter. As it was day, the sun was away on his long journey, but the moon was at home, and she welcomed the girl as her son's bride. And the girl lived happy in the star country with her husband, and she learned many wonderful things. Not far from her home, near the tent of the Spider Man who weaved webs, a large turnip was growing about, which she wondered greatly. But the moon, seeing her wonder, said, "You may dig any roots that grow in the sky, but I warn you not to dig up the large turnip. If you do, Unhappiness will follow you. After a time, a son was born to the girl, and everywhere the girl went, she carried the child. She called him Star Boy. She often saw the large turnip near the tent of Spider-Man, who weaved webs, but mindful of the moon's warning, she was afraid to touch it. One day, however, her wonder overcame her, and she decided to see what was underneath the turnip. She tried to pull it up, but it stuck fast, and she was unable to move it. Then two large cranes flying from the east came to her aid, and, catching the turnip with their long bills, they moved it from side to side, loosened it, and pulled it up. The girl looked through the hole and saw the earth far beneath her. It was the same hole through which Morning Star had brought her to the sky. She looked long through the hole, and she saw the camps of her people, the Blackfeet, on the plains far below. What she saw was well known to her. It was summer on the prairies. The men were playing games. The women were tanning skins or gathering berries on the rolling hills. She grew very lonely as she watched, for she wanted to be back on the green prairies with her own people. And when she turned away to go home, she was crying bitterly. When she reached home, Morning Star and his mother, the moon, were waiting for her. Morning Star at once knew from her face what had happened, and he said, "You have pulled up the sacred turnip." When she did not answer, the moon said, "I warned you not to dig it up because I love Starboy and I do not wish to part with him." It was day, and the sun was away on his long journey. When he came home in the evening, he asked what was the matter with his daughter, for she looked sad and troubled. And the girl answered that she was lonely because she had looked down that day upon her people on the plains. Then the sun was very angry and said to Morning Star, "If she has disobeyed, she must go back to her people. She cannot live here." Morning Star and the moon pleaded with the sun to let her remain, but the sun said that it was better that she go back to the prairies, for she would no longer be happy in the sky. Then Morning Star led the girl to the house of the Spider-Man, who had weaved the web that had drawn her up to the sky. He placed Starboy on her breast and wrapped around them a bright robe. Then he bade them farewell, saying, "We will let you down where your people on the plains can see you as you fall." Then the Spider-Man, with his web, let her down as she had come, through the hole in the sky. It was a hot, still evening in the midsummer when the girl returned to her people. Many of the people were outside their tents, and they saw a bright light in the northern sky. They watched it slowly drop until it reached the ground. They thought it was a shooting star. They ran to the place where the bright light fell, and there they found a strange bundle, inside of which were the woman and her child. Her parents knew her, and she returned with them to their home and lived with them. But she was never happy. Often she took Starboy to the top of a high hill in the west, where she sat and mourned for her home in the sky. And daily she watched Morning Star rise from the plains. Once she begged him to take her back to the country of the stars, but he answered, "You disobeyed, and therefore I cannot take you back. Your sin is the cause of your sorrow, and it has brought great trouble to you and your people." So the star woman lived alone and unhappy upon the earth because she had disobeyed. After a time, she died, and her son, Starboy, was left alone. Although born in the home of the sun, he was very poor. He had little of the world's goods, but few clothes to wear. He was so timid that he never played with other children, and he lived much by himself. On his face was a strange scar, which became more marked as he grew older. Because of this, and his shy and timid ways, he was laughed at by everybody. Other boys stoned him and abused him and called him Scarface. When Starboy became a man, he loved a girl of his own people. She was very beautiful, and many young men wanted to marry her, but she refused them all. She told Starboy that she would not marry him until he removed the strange scar from his face. He was much troubled by this answer, and he talked about it to the old medicine woman who knew many things. The medicine woman told him that the scar had been placed on his face by the sun, and that only the sun himself could take it off. So he decided to go to the home of the sun. He went across the prairies and over the mountains for many days, meeting many dangers and suffering great hardships. At last he came to the great water in the west, the Pacific Ocean. For 3 days and nights he lay on the sand, fasting and praying to the sun god. On the evening of the fourth day, he saw a bright trail leading across the water to the west. He ran along this path across the water until he came at last to the home of the sun, where he hid himself and waited. Early next morning, the sun came out of his tent, ready for his day's journey. He saw Starboy, but he did not know him, for Starboy had grown since he left the country of the stars. The sun was angry when he saw a creature from earth, and calling his wife the moon, he said, "We will kill him, for he comes from a good for nothing race." But the moon, being kind, prevented it and saved the boy's life. Then Morning Star, the boy's father, handsome and bright, came from his tent. He recognized his child, and after the usual fashion in the sky, he brought dried sweet grass and burned it so that the smoke curled around the boy and cleansed him from the dust of the earth. Then he brought him to his father and mother, the sun and the moon, and told them who the boy was. And Starboy told his story of his long journey, and of the marriage refusal of the girl he loved because of the scar on his face. And they took pity on him and promised to help him. Starboy lived in the home of the sun and the moon with Morning Star. Once he went hunting and killed 7 large birds which had threatened the life of his father. He gave 4 of the dead birds to the sun and 3 to the moon. And the sun, glad to be rid of those pests, resolved to pay him well for his work. As a reward, he took the scar from his face, as the medicine woman had said. And he made him his messenger to the Blackfeet people on the Canadian plains, and promised that if they would give a festival in his honor once a year, he would heal their sick. The festival was to be known as the Sundance. He taught Starboy the secrets of the dance and the songs to be used in it so that he could tell his people. And he gave him 2 raven feathers to wear as a sign that he came from the sun, and a very wonderful robe. And he gave him a magic flute and a wonderful song with which he could charm the heart of the girl he loved. So Starboy returned to his people, the Blackfeet of the plains, running along by the Milky Way, the short, bright path to the earth. When he had taught them the secret of the Sundance, he married the girl he loved, and the sun took them back to live with him in the sky. And he made him bright and beautiful, just like his father, Morning Star, and gave him work to do. Sometimes the father and son can be seen together in the sky. The people of Earth sometimes call Father Venus, the son Jupiter, but the Indians call them Morning Star and Little Morning Star. And since that time, once a year, the Blackfeet of the plains hold the Sundance that their sick may all be healed, as it was promised to Starboy by the sun god in the old days. The end. A good story about Starboy, huh? So, and to this day, they still do hold the Sundance, and it is very much a sacred dance. Um, and only a few people are ever invited to a Sundance ceremony.
Yeah.
Next week, our story will be The Mouse and the Sun. So we'll have to wait and see how that one goes.
Mm-hmm.
2 stories in, in 2 weeks about the sun. So that'll be interesting. So,
Will. Okay.
how many people have their animules picked?
Oh, a few of them. I know Chloe got hers in, and somebody else got theirs in. I think. I think it was. Let me scan this. Scotty Boy guessed all the animals that you can't pick. F. Kitty says coyote, buffalo, badger, skunk, and cougar.
Nope.
No. That's a big uh-oh. And
Okay, so here we go.
let's see. Hang on a second here. I gotta pull up
Opossum. is the first card. Raven. Oh, possum is right side up. Raven is right side up. Third card is weasel upside down. The next card is squirrel upside down. The next card is owl right side up. The next card is frog right side up. And the last card, this is a bunch of cards tonight, is deer upside down.
Well, I think somebody got some right here.
That's there's extra cards tonight, so somebody should have got some of them.
That's right. Let me get some of this. Let's see. Just trying to look back here. I think it might have been Chloe, if I can remember right. She got it in. Got everything in here early. If I'm looking. Let's see. I don't want to pass it by. Oh, those kangaroos. They're talking about kangaroos. There is no kangaroo. Sorry.
No, but the possum is a marsupial of sorts.
It is.
So, and the weasel, sort of. Let's see, what number are that's 23, and that's crow. Almost got it. So, opossum is diversion. So right off the bat, possums, so for the rest of this spread, possums coming out with diversion, okay? And so his greatest form of protection is to play dead. And, every time I bring it up, but, my dog Duggar knows all about how a possum can play dead in just a minute.
Really?
And Duggar will leave him alone, So
there's Chloe. She had snake, turtle, swan, badger, and moose. You got none right, Chloe. None.
None of them. None yet.
None.
Possum medicine uses a great deal of strategy. Okay, so we've got strategy right off the bat, being as a diversion. If all else fails, possum can play dead. It has the ability to fight with its claws and teeth if it needs, but rarely uses this form, and that's true. Unless cornered, possum might hiss in a little bit, but as soon as it can, it'll ball up and play dead. If possum is turned up in your cards, you are being asked to use strategy. Okie dokie. In some present situation. So at the moment, possum is saying to use strategy and to use a diversion. Okay. So rely upon your instincts for the best way out of a tight situation. You never find yourself in a corner. Possum may be relaying to you that you are to expect the unexpected and be clever in achieving your victory. So being clever and using strategy. Okay, so that's a good card right there, right? To start off with. So the next one up is Raven, number 16. So, and an interesting lay of cards, just saying. All right. So the next card up is Raven Magic. Raven has carried the medicine of magic. There have been many cultures that use this as sacred. Raven is the bringer of magic. Okay. The magic could be bad medicine. Those who fear Raven may do so because they've been dabbling in the wrong arts. Raven magic is a powerful medicine that can give you the courage to enter the darkness of the void, which is the home of all that is yet informed, not yet informed. So it takes you into the void where thoughts are not yet informed. So you're thinking about it, but it hasn't taken form yet. Okay. So, and here's the possum saying, you're going to be going into something, a little bit of use some strategy. And Raven is now saying, you're going to have the courage to go into the dark. The darkness is not something bad. So the darkness is basically the unknown. Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow? No. So in that, it's the darkness. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Well, the sun's going to come up and yeah, but you don't know what exactly, right? So in that, it's the darkness. But so if Raven has appeared in your spread, you are about to experience a change in consciousness. This may involve walking inside the great mystery on another path at the edge of time. So Raven, here we are with the possum, is strategy, and here's Raven saying there's going to be a change in consciousness. So the next card up is an upside down weasel, number 33. Raven is magic, the bringer of magic. And there's something coming up. Number 33. Number 33 is stealth. So Weasel's all about being able to sneak into the enemy camp and find out what's going on and bring it back to the chief. So the Weasel never failed to give an accurate account of the enemy's numbers or strengths and weaknesses. So Weasel fur changes in color with the season. So that's one of its good things. But Weasel is about stealth, but it's upside down. So in the contrary, Weasel, um, look out for intrigue. So Magic is saying there's something coming up. Possum saying, use strategy for the magic that's coming up. And upside down Weasel is saying there's going to be intrigue. Someone may be using some covert tactics to mess up your life, or perhaps you may be lying to yourself about something you know to be true. So that's an interesting thing. So because Weasel can weasel the truth out of things, you got to make sure that it's not you. Another message of reversed Weasel is to acknowledge why you have been doubting your feelings. So it so here doubt is being dropped into this. So Raven brings magic in it. To a lot of people, it'd be easy to say, well, I don't know if I can do this. So now the next one is squirrel upside down. So, Weasel saying, don't doubt yourself on this, or you may be doubting yourself. 26 is squirrel. Squirrel is all about hoarding stuff, gathering. Yep. So the squirrel is all about teaches you to plan ahead for the winter when the trees are bare and the roots are, you know, the nuts have long been disappeared. The gathering power of squirrel medicine is a great gift. It teaches you to gather and store your energy. Store your energy for times when it needs to be used. It teaches you to reserve something for future use, whether it be an opinion, judgment, savings account, or otherwise. Now, that's in the upright position. So, upside down, what is squirrel going to get us? So upside down, squirrel is the hoarder, okay? Holding on to too much. A person who expects the worst and is stuck in waiting for it to happen. Oh my God, the end of the world is coming. And so you get stuck in that mode. Waiting for something to happen is the trap. No action equals stagnation. So here's Weasel saying, well, I don't know if I, got enough courage to do it. And here's Squirrel saying, that it might be stagnation with it. Um, have I denied my ability to produce enough space for abundance to enter my life? That's a good one. Have I denied my connection to the Mother Earth from which all things flow? So, Weasel's like, be careful. Raven is bringing the magic, but you got to have the courage. And Squirrel saying, be careful that are you leaking energy to something that you shouldn't be. So contrary, Squirrel is the hoarder, a fearful person who expects the worst. So we can't do that. Now the next one is a face up, and it's number 21, owl. Number 21 is owl, and it's deception. Owl medicine is symbolically associated with clairvoyance and magic. So Raven's bringing in the magic, okay? Um, but got to make sure with the weasel that we don't lack the courage, and squirrel making sure you're not a hoarder of energies and afraid to do something. And now owl is a symbol associated with clairvoyance and magic. Owl hunts at night, and owl is oftentimes the medicine of sorcerers and witches and folks, because owls see what others cannot because they are so good at seeing in the dark. So, is it any wonder that in many cultures, owl is a symbol for wisdom? If you pulled the owl card, you are being asked to use your powers of keen, silent observation. Okay? So, coming up with a solution. So, squirrel is worried, but then owl comes in and says, look, I'm gonna look at it with a good keen observations, and for whatever it's gonna I see going to help fix whatever it is that where the courage is lacked. Owl is going to bring in um, um, the power of observation. Owl is befriending you and aiding you in seeing the total truth. And the next card up is frog, which number 38, I think is cleansing, if I remember. Frog. Yep, is cleansing. So owl is bringing in wisdom. Use keen eyesight to see what the problem is and to fix it. And frog is all about, if things ain't going right, jump to the next lily pad and clean off yourself and clean your emotions up too. So an ability of frog medicine people is to give support energy where it's needed. Frog medicine person can clean negativity from any environment. So any negativity that may be in these cards, Frog's going to clean it up. Frog speaks of new life and harmony through its rain song. The deep tones of Frog's ribbit are said to be the call to the thunder beings, thunder, lightning, and rain. The ribbit is the heartbeat that comes into harmony with Father Sky and calls for the replenishment that's needed. And the next cleansing. So, and the next card up is one of my favorites, but it's upside down. It's number 4, and it's deer. Deer was headed up Sacred Mountain one day, and on the way, it bounced into a very negative being, a nasty, ugly troll that tried to scare it back down the mountain. And deer said, "Ain't having none of it." And through its gentleness and its gentle being, the and those eyes that a young deer will look at you with, um, it turned the demon to the size of a walnut, and deer was able to go on up Sacred Mountain, and the path to Sacred Mountain, because of this, is always open. And deer is all about gentleness. So deer opened the path to Sacred Mountain through gentleness. But deer in the contrary position indicates that you are courting your fear by fighting the internal demons of negative ideas. Ooh. So here you are. So all these, there's a good idea coming along, and the magic of Raven, diversion. You're going to use strategy, and then but make sure with the weasel that you don't lose your confidence, and make sure with squirrel that you don't harbor any bad feelings and hold them in. Use owl and the wisdom of owl and the keen eyesight of owl to fix whatever not necessarily fix, but um, whatever the thing is that's coming, we can see it clearly, and make sure that with frog we can clean it out. But also with deer, we have indicates that you are courting fear by fighting internal demons of negative ideas. In other words, that tells me that whatever the good idea is at the beginning of this and the magic of it can be thwarted at the end by people who throw negative ideas at you. So, which to me would mean that we'd have to go back to frog and make sure we get cleansed again. So, Remember, fawn can teach you many lessons about unconditional love. In its true application, unconditional love means that no strings are attached. So even through this list of cards here, there's unconditional love. The gentleness of fawn is the heart space of great spirit, which embodies his or her love for us all. So it ain't bad, you know. Just Deer wants to let you know that make sure we're not courting our fears. So I like them cards. How good? How'd they do? Ooh, pretty good. 20 minutes. So what do you think, huh? You think them cards are worth it?
I think so. Absolutely. Good.
This seems like a really good spread.
Well,
So whatever it is that's coming up for us, you know, there's it's good magic early on, and possums, like, you know, we got to use strategy. So I don't know what it is that we might be forthcoming for us, but you know, looks like a good one to me. So let's keep our heads up.
That's right.
And don't get bought. So these cards also, it's with the upside down weasel. We can't lose our courage, whatever it is. So whatever it is that's coming up, we can't lose our courage. We got to stick with it because the cards say it's good.
Well, exactly.
So there.
Yep. So the thing is,
take them cards and show them.
Yeah, we got I'm trying to look through all this stuff, but yeah, with all the turmoil and stuff we got going on in the world, we got all these people trying to scare us with, you know, civil war and, oh, we're gonna have a civil war here, blah blah blah. Who we fighting? That's what I want to know. Who are we fighting? And why would we have a civil war? Everybody's too busy going to work, and I'm going to say, I'll be one to say, raise my hand and say, there is going to be no civil war until either the power goes out or the food runs out in the store, which I don't think that either one of those two are going to happen. So there you go. That's my thoughts. No civil war coming. Don't let anything scare you like that, because I just don't think it'd be... See, I think Chloe's right. Courage, it'll be good. Just get past fear. And they want people to be fearful, because if you're fearful, you take chances. You make bad decisions. You do all kinds of weird things that you normally would not do.
You will do stupid stuff whether you think it or not. You'll end up doing something stupid. And you'll go, oh no, and you won't be able to take it back.
Even if you make good decisions, they can end up badly, because the powers that be will steer you that way. It's like, oh, we're going to have a civil war. You better do this. You better do that. And you will, because you're thinking, well, it's better to be prepared. I gotta work. Well, and then they got you. That's all there's to it.
Yep. Now, one thing I will say, that you should, if you can't afford some MREs or the you know, the freeze dried food in the package or something, at least buy a couple of extra canned goods, because we never know when something bad will happen, weather wise or otherwise, and so there's just a lot of weirdness going on the planet. There's a lot of weirdness coming from outer space with all these high intensity radiation that we've been getting. We were at a G3 or a G4, way up solar flare for almost a day the other day coming from the sun. So we've been getting plastered from a lot of things coming from outer space. And where was I going with that? There are a lot of, I've been talking about it for years, but there are a lot of other folks starting to talk about it, about the expanding earth. So it's like,
Yeah.
So if everybody else is talking about it, it is like, because I was just sort of I felt like I was one of the few by myself that discussed it, right? But now other folks are
Yep.
talking about it, and it's like seems like it's more probable than not now that the Earth really is expanding, and so some of the folks are saying that they've because they have admitted that they feel the Earth is expanding, they also feel that there is an event coming, a hiccup of sorts, something that the Earth's going to burp or something. And so there's going to be an event. How bad or where it's going to be, nobody knows, but they are saying that the Earth is acting like there's going to be some type of event. But where or how, don't know, but there's too much stress along the plates. That's one of the things. And the stress has been building over the years. And so even though there's an earthquake over here and there's one over here, but those earthquakes are getting bigger,
Well, and the thing is our planet is connected to the sun, and they work together. When the sun backs off, the Earth kind of gets energetic. When the sun gets strong, the Earth kind of goes back to normal. It's a cycle. And then, of course, we got these rogue comets and stuff. There's supposed to be one coming by the Earth in a couple of days, really close, and it's supposed to be really huge. So you'll probably see it in the sky. It's going to be huge.
Now they got one that's supposed to be huge, and it's going to be 1 lunar distance. So from the Earth to the moon, it's going to be 2.5 of those. So it's going to be way on the other side of the moon. So close is relative. They keep trying to scare everybody. So if it's going to be the distance of the moon on the other side of the moon and half of that. So don't let them scare you. Make sure you look. If they want to tell you that one's coming by, go look for yourself and see how far away the bugger is. Ooh, it's coming in close. It's on the other side of the moon. So anyway,
yes.
Yeah, we got a bunch of these things flying around, and yes, stuff can happen. But also, my dear friends, don't let them scare you with this stuff. Do your homework. It's real easy to find near Earth objects and type it in, and they'll show you a graph of all the ones that are coming in close and how far away, and learn the jargon. But every single one here lately, they have been trying to scare the bejeebers out of folks, and it's like, no, it's 1 million miles away. Well, it's sort of close in space terminology. Oh, shut up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't even think of it. See, this is what we kind of talked about the other day, and when that Richard. So everybody remember to tune in on Sunday for Richard Allen Miller. He's a scientist and everything, but we're going to be asking him some questions like that. And I know our solar system is an electric universe. We live in an electric universe.
Yes.
The thing is that meteor, that comet, doesn't really actually have to hit us. It can be 1 million miles away, but it may affect the Earth itself by just passing by.
Right.
That's the problem. That's the problem. So, the big giant comet isn't going to strike. If it did strike the Earth, we would all know it and probably all die. But the thing is it passes by, and it can make just like the moon makes the tides move and all these other things. Well, it could cause earthquakes. It could cause landslides. It could cause great big hurricanes. It could cause all kinds of things like that. Just
it
saying.
could cause an electrical discharge,
That too.
of sorts.
That too. But I mean, it
but,
could,
and especially with the magnetic lines. But
yes.
now this big one coming in is going to be on the other side of the sun from us. So it's not going to be real close. But when it gets over to Jupiter, then, there can be an electrical line, magnetic line that can affect us then.
So speaking of that, I think you're talking about that 3-eye atlas, that one. That's, okay. So here's the thing. It may not be getting close to us. And yes, it's on the other side of the sun, so we can't really see it. But then when it comes out of that spot, it's going to go by Mars. And it's going to get really close to Mars, like skimming across the sky close. I ain't so worried about it hitting us, but what happens? Now, this is just a theory. I know this is a Western show, but anyway, my theory is if it gets close to Mars, so close that it throws Mars orbit off, how much will that affect us? You see what I'm saying? It's a domino effect. If you affect one, the Mars gets pushed over. Will it affect us? And then we get affected, and then we affect the other planet. You know what I mean? If this one moves, that one's got to move. If this one moves here, that because they've been moving in the same spots for so long. What happens when something happens? You get where I'm going with this?
Yeah. I would be more inclined with this particular object that there's not enough mass for it to like orbit it. That they were talking about that the worst that could happen is that it would become a moon of Mars and not necessarily drag it out of orbit or anything, because it ain't big enough. Now, if it struck Mars and did something, well, that would be separate, but they don't think it's going to hit Mars at all. And close again is in astronomical units. So, be careful. It's not like it's going to be right out the window from Mars. It's going to still be a ways out. So,
yeah. But that's the thing in space. Like you were saying, it's going to be 1,000,000 miles away. Doesn't matter because, when the planets all line up, they make this magnetic field, and we know we're millions of miles away from Mars, and we're millions of miles away from Jupiter. But if you get Mars, Jupiter, and all these other ones lined up, it's a magnetic thing. All kinds of weird things can happen. So
right, I agree. The magnetic field lines, but what's also remember too, my friends, that we've talked about it for a while, and folks have a tendency to forget. But remember, our whole solar system. I'll keep reminding folks, but our whole solar system is above the ecliptic of the Milky Way now, of our galaxy. And so we are getting lots of energy from the galactic center straight to us without any interference of any other planets or stuff. So remember that we are getting all kinds of weird stuff from the center of the galaxy. So that also, my point is that also goes along with the magnetic field lines from our sun. We're getting stuff from the galaxy center also. Okay. Add that to the fire, in other words.
Well, and we're talking, like you said something about it being 18 million miles away from, 18 million miles away from Mars on October 3rd. But still, its tail they said the tail of this thing is 250,000 miles long. That's like from here to the moon long. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's just the tail of the comet. I'm thinking, wow, okay. So we're talking big in space. Everything is big. It's just bigger than normal because that's how things operate there. I mean, there's a lot of
also
nothing.
the tail of the comet is agitated particles. It doesn't mean that they're all the great big giant pieces or whatever. So the tail is is agitated particles, by this object that's going through. So and the fact that I think that the reason the tail is so long is because it's hauling butt so fast. So if you're going along in a motorboat, you got a wake that's okay. But if you got 100 horsepower in a jet boat and you crank that puppy up, you're shooting a rooster tail up, and buddy, you can So the fact that it's going as fast as it is, that's my general interpretation. That's why it's got such a long tail.
Could be.
And I'm sticking to it.
Okay, you stick to it. We're going to wrap this show up. We're at 2 hours and 6 minutes. But don't forget to join us on Saturday night, Sunday night over on Nina's channel. And we'll be back next week, next Tuesday, which is the 23rd. So catch us back here, same place, same channel. Remember to go out and do something. Summer is getting to be over. And as of the 21st, we'll start into the fall. So check that out, the equinox. So remember, go out and do some fall things. Leaves here are turning, things like that. But join me and Nina as we have Dr. Robert Miller on, Alan Miller on. I don't know, I'm tongue-tied. But anyway, join us Sunday night. We're going to have a great show. I don't even know what are we having a show tonight? You having a show tonight?
Oh, me? Oh, pay attention. Yeah, I think so. I'll go get some more coffee.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway,
so for those of you who are, I'll be back in 20.
Okay, in 20 minutes. And then you can talk a little more about the 3-eye atlas and all that good stuff like that. Chloe says, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Yes, he will be on, and you can join us over there. We got some real good questions. I have his book. I'm reading it. It's fascinating. I never knew this guy was so brilliant. Yes, he's got all kinds of good stuff and way more than I ever thought. Way, way more. Oh, my gosh. Get his book. Read it up. It'll blow your mind. And with that, go out and spread your knowledge. Tell everybody all the things you need, that and that you learned. Go out and see if you can find some stuff about Joe Meek. And remember, rewatch the Indian stories. They're the best. And do something nice for your neighbor. With that, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.